Hi, I'm Alexa. I am one of the mountain school instructors and I'm a time traveler, and I'm here working on the ACODIS project. I'm on a mission to learn a little bit more about the cultural history of the Upper Skagit by talking to some historically important people. In our upcoming journeys through time, we're going to meet individuals such as Lucinda Davis and J.D. Ross, among others, all of whom have a lot to teach us about their past and the part they play in the history of the Skagit Valley. I hope you'll join me on this exciting journey through time. Now, before we do any time traveling, I want to give you a bit of background on this project. So, meet me in the library. Welcome! So a big part of the human history of the Skagit Valley we actually can't access with this particular time machine. So let's pretend that my arms, all the way outstretched, represent the entirety of human history in this valley. The ancestors of today's Indigenous communities, who have called this place their homeland since time immemorial, stretch back over 10,000 years ago. We can imagine that that is the tip of my left fingertips here. And they have been here in this place, caring for and stewarding this land for all of my left arm and all of my right arm as well. Generations and generations. It's pretty incredible. So the historically important people, or HIPs, that we will be able to interview and interact with this time machine, they have only been calling this place home since where my right fingernails begin to grow on my right hand. For another example, J.D. Ross, whose Skagit Hydro project we will visit, only came into existence where my right fingernail begins to turn white at the very tip. So that's really not a lot of history. That's a teensy bit in the grand scheme of all human history in this place. When gold miners and settlers began to head up the Skagit Valley, this place was not uninhabited. The Swinomish, the Sauk-Suiattle, the Upper Skagit, the Inglakatma, and other Indigenous communities were actively practicing their traditional lifeways here. Though some of these societies were already beginning to see some changes due to their interactions with European trappers and explorers coming into this region. In fact, many settlers who came up valley actually employed Indigenous people to help them travel up here safely, just like Lucinda Davis and her family did. In many cases, when settlers would arrive in this place, they would actually set up camp on the traditional homelands of these Indigenous people. In fact, they would tell these Indigenous people that this land now belonged to them under U.S. law. And because they now said they owned the land, they could actually force these Indigenous people out. During this same era in Washington, the federal government and many, but not all tribes, created and signed treaties meant to recognize tribal independence as nations in their own right, though these treaties were not upheld honestly by the U.S. government. In fact, they led to much displacement of Indigenous peoples from their homeland, creating more space and opening the way for more Euro-American settlement. No two groups shared the same experience, though many of the ancestors of the Upper Skagit, the Sauk-Suiattle, the Swinomish, and the Inglakatma nations were forced out of the Skagit Valley, and many others died fighting to stay here. One of the results of these injustices is that the historic record written by white settlers includes almost no information about the Indigenous residents of this valley. though undoubtedly there are so many historically important people that lived in this place long before those we will be able to visit using our time machine. Due to the forced erasure of these people and their culture, these are not my stories to share, and I will not be able to take you into their history using this time machine. Fortunately, members of the Upper Skagit tribe, the Sakshuwatl tribe, the Swinomish tribal community, and the Inglakatma band all continue their connection and stewardship of the Skagit Valley. These sovereign nations continue to steward their history and their stories and graciously share some of this knowledge in other formats. I hope you take some time to explore one of these websites or read one of these books, and in that way you can travel through time to the recent or more distant past and perhaps even answer some questions that you have. That's what I will be doing to prepare for our upcoming journeys. And now that you know a little bit more about the project, I can't wait for you to join me on some of our upcoming ACODIS missions. Until then, happy time traveling.